They laughed when you fell. They whispered when you cried. They turned away when you were at your lowest, writing you off like a forgotten page in a torn book. But what they didn't know was that God was still writing your story. And today, heaven has a message for them and for you. They thought you were done, but God says, I've only just begun. The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. It was a kind of storm that seeped into the bones, not just water from the sky, but a cold reminder of everything that had gone wrong. Sophia stood by the window, her reflection barely visible in the cracked glass, eyes hollow, soul heavy. Her apartment was almost empty now, except for a worn-out couch, a leaking ceiling, and the smell of silence that had overstayed its welcome. Once, this place echoed with laughter, with the dreams of a woman determined to rise, with the prayers of someone who believed that if she gave her all, the world would meet her halfway. But life didn't meet her halfway. It dragged her through the mud, kicked her while she was down, and left her gasping for air in rooms where no one came to help. She had trusted. She had built. She had loved deeply and been betrayed just as deeply. They said she was too naive. They said she wasn't smart enough, not strategic enough. They said she was finished when the business collapsed. They said she was delusional when she tried to rebuild. But no one saw the night she bled her soul into silent prayers. No one heard the battles she fought when the world slept. All they saw was her fall, and they rejoiced in it. Not out loud, no. Their smiles were subtle, their comfort rehearsed, but the delight in her downfall glimmered in their eyes, especially in the ones who once claimed to be her closest, like Maya, her best friend turned opportunist, who walked away when the money dried up and the spotlight shifted, or Jared, her fiancé, who left her when she lost her job, saying he needed someone more stable, more focused. Even her own cousin, who had smiled at her loss and whispered behind her back, she had it coming, always thought she was better than us. Their words buried her, but she wasn't dead. She was planted, and under that dirt, in the silence, in the stillness, something holy was forming. God was working where no eyes could see. The days blurred into one another, but something in Sophia refused to break. Her soul was bruised, yes, but not broken, not even close. It started with a whisper, one of those quiet moments when she sat with her hands in her lap and her head hung low. A scripture she hadn't read in years came rushing to her heart. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. Tears welled up, not the bitter kind, but the kind that carried truth, because deep inside, a flicker of faith still glowed. She got up that night and wrote one line in her old journal. They thought I was done, but God isn't finished with me yet. It became her mantra, her battle cry, her truth. In the following weeks, Sophia began to move differently. She took long walks, silent ones, with no destination, just prayers whispered into the wind. She started reading again, books about faith, resilience, stories of people who rose from ashes just like hers. She volunteered at a local shelter, not because she had much to give, but because she needed to remind herself of purpose, of humanity, of hope. And little by little, the storm within her started to calm. Her laughter returned. Not loud, but real. Her ideas returned, small at first, but powerful. And with every breath, she felt it. God was restoring her. Quietly, faithfully, eternally. One day, while sitting in a small cafe she used to visit during better times, she overheard a conversation at the table beside her. Two women discussing a startup idea, similar to something she had once built. She couldn't ignore the divine timing. She leaned over, politely offered a suggestion, and something clicked. A business card was exchanged. A phone call followed. Then, an invitation to consult. And just like that, the door creaked open again. Not the same door. Not the old, unstable one built on other people's validation. No, this one was carved by her own hands, in the dark, with tears and prayer as her tools. 3 months later, Sophia launched a small consulting agency, quietly, humbly, with no grand announcements. She worked in silence, letting results speak. And people noticed, not the ones who laughed at her. No, They were too busy scrolling through her success online with widened eyes and clenched teeth. They didn't expect it. They thought she was done. They thought the chapter had closed. But what they didn't know is that God doesn't allow his children to be buried forever. Sometimes he lets them be hidden. Sometimes he allows the storm to hit hard, so the roots grow deeper. But always, always, he rises them again. Stronger, wiser, unshakable. The same cousin who mocked her asked if she was hiring. The same ex-fiancé sent her a message. You look radiant these days. I've missed you. The same so-called best friend tried to schedule a coffee catch-up, suddenly interested in reconnecting. She smiled, but she didn't need revenge. She had peace. She didn't need to clap back. She had purpose. And she didn't need to explain her glow, because God had done what no one else could. He turned her pain into power. So if you're listening to this right now, broken, forgotten, laughed at, counted out, remember this. They thought you were done, but God is not finished with you. Your silence is not your surrender. Your tears are not your defeat. Your setbacks are not the end. They're just the beginning of your comeback. The people who wrote you off will have to read the next chapter in awe, because what they buried, God is resurrecting. And when God moves, no opinion, no betrayal, no storm can stop what's coming for you. You're not done. You're rising. And this time, nothing and no one will be able to deny what God is doing through you. The skies were clear now. No clouds. No storm. Just sunlight pouring into the wide windows of Sophia's new office, an office she designed herself, bathed in warmth, green plants, and a subtle gold plaque that read, "Rebuilt in Faith." The scent of fresh coffee lingered in the air as she typed on her laptop, her fingers moving with purpose, her mind sharper than ever. Each keystroke was a small rebellion against the lie that she was finished. Each task she completed reminded her how far she'd come from that rainy night of despair. But the journey wasn't just about rebuilding a business. It was about reclaiming the self they tried to erase. They had called her too emotional. They had told her dreams were too big for someone like her. They had mocked her resilience, twisting it into desperation. But now, those same voices had grown quiet, not out of kindness, but out of shock, because the woman they counted out had become the woman they now wanted to learn from. She didn't gloat. She didn't mock them in return. She just kept rising. And as her light grew, so did the shadows of her past trying to creep back in. Maya showed up first. It started with a comment on one of Sophia's Instagram posts. "Proud of you, sis. Always knew you had it in you." The same woman who ghosted her when she lost everything now claimed loyalty. Then Jared messaged again. Longer this time. "I've been thinking a lot about us. I realize now that I left because I was afraid. You were always stronger than me. Sophia, I couldn't handle your depth. I was a fool to walk away." She stared at the message for a long time, remembering the cold emptiness he left behind, the way he avoided her eyes as he packed his bags, the silence that echoed louder than any words. Now, those words came back, but not because he loved her, because he saw her shining again. And perhaps the most unexpected was a call from her old boss, the one who fired her without warning after a client accused her of a mistake she didn't make. "We're expanding," he said. "Would love to bring you on as a partner. We know your worth now." Now they knew. Now they remembered her strength. But she remembered something else. Who was there when no one else was? The handful of souls who didn't leave when she was empty. The mentor who took her call at 2 a.m. The single mom at the shelter who prayed with her. The barista who slipped her a free coffee with a sticky note that read, "Keep going. The world needs your fire." These were the ones who mattered. She politely declined the job offer. She never responded to Jared's message. And she sent Maya a gentle, final message. "Thank you, but I've learned to cherish distance that protects peace." She didn't need old chapters when God was writing a new book. With her company growing steadily, Sophia launched a second initiative, a mentorship program for women rebuilding from loss. No fees, no prerequisites, just a safe space where forgotten women could find strength again. It was called Still Rising. Every Saturday, a group of strangers-turned-sisters gathered in her office, some fresh out of divorce, some healing from toxic friendships, some rebuilding from financial ruin. Each woman walked in with invisible wounds, but left with visible hope. One Saturday, a woman named Lila broke down in tears while sharing her story, abandoned by her family after speaking her truth, jobless, sleeping in her car. Sophia knelt beside her, took her hand, and said, "They thought you were done, but God says you're about to begin." Lila sobbed harder, not from pain, but from finally feeling seen. That's when Sophia understood. This journey wasn't just about her. Her fall had been necessary. Her silence had been sacred. Her rising wasn't for applause. It was for purpose, because she was now the hand reaching back into the pit she once climbed out of. Months passed. Then a year. Still rising expanded into 3 cities. She was invited to speak at conferences. Podcasts featured her story. The same press that once ignored her downfall now begged for interviews. Her name echoed in rooms she had once been shut out of, but the best moment came on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. She received a letter, handwritten, trembling script, no return address. It read, "You don't know me, but I watched your journey from afar. I was one of the people who doubted you. I shared your failures with others, not because you deserved it, but because I was jealous of your light. When you fell, I felt relief. When you rose again, I felt shame. Watching you now, I want to become better. Thank you for showing that grace is greater than gossip. That fire doesn't die, it purifies." Sophia wept after reading it, not out of pride, but because she knew it wasn't her strength that carried her here. It was God. Only He could transform a story meant for destruction into one of redemption. And now she could finally say, not with bitterness but with gratitude, "They thought I was done, but that was just the beginning." On the anniversary of her darkest night, she returned to the old apartment. It was empty now. The building was scheduled for demolition. As she stood in that same spot by the cracked window, memories flooded her. The rain, the silence, the loneliness, the line in her journal. She opened the worn notebook, found that page, and wrote underneath, "They thought I was done, but God made sure the story wasn't over." As she closed the book, the sun broke through the clouds, just like it had in her life, because that's how God works. He doesn't just rebuild. He resurrects. He redefines. He restores. Not so the world can clap, but so that souls can awaken. Sophia walked away from that apartment for the last time, not as a victim, not even as a survivor, but as a vessel of God's mercy, living proof that no matter how deep the pit, His hand is deeper. She had become the story that would inspire 1,000 others. And if someone listening right now feels like they've reached the end, this is your sign. You're not done. God's not finished. And what's coming for you will silence every doubt they ever spoke. So hold on. Breathe again. Rise. Quietly if you must, but rise. Because the fire didn't burn you to ash. It burned away everything that wasn't meant to go with you to the top. And now it's your turn to shine. They thought you were done. But heaven knows your real story starts now.